What if a nation's survival wasn't decided by politics or diplomacy, but by its military strength? In the Sahel, one of the most volatile regions on Earth, where extremist groups operate from the shadows, Burkina Faso is redefining how a country defends itself. In this new paradigm, national freedom outweighs individual liberties. A strong nation isn't built on disorder or indiscipline. Under Ibrahim Traoré's leadership, Burkina Faso has shifted away from traditional military strategies and embraced a new era of mobile warfare, precision strikes, and advanced technology. This is more than just border protection. It's a declaration of sovereignty, a rejection of foreign meddling, and a move to establish the country as a serious contender in the regional power dynamics. While insurgent threats continue to spread across the region, Burkina Faso is far from passive. Its military is adapting, becoming faster, sharper, and more capable. But this evolution comes with challenges. Internal political tensions, divisions within the armed forces, and outside pressure from former colonial powers like France all threaten to undermine Traoré's vision. Will these military innovations secure Burkina Faso's long-term stability, or are they simply a stopgap in the face of deeper structural issues? In the harsh climate of the Sahel, where conflict shifts like the desert sands, and borders often disappear into chaos, Burkina Faso has made a deliberate choice. It refuses to be a bystander in a world where instability is the norm. The country is modernizing its armed forces, focusing not just on more firepower, but on acquiring the tools needed for a new type of warfare. Traoré's administration has accepted a hard truth. Survival in the Sahel is no longer about having the biggest army. It's about speed, adaptability, and technological superiority. One of the most noticeable changes has been the move away from outdated battlefield tactics. For years, the Burkinabe military relied on fixed positions and conventional responses, an approach no longer effective against agile, organized insurgents operating especially in the northern and eastern zones. A new military doctrine was born, one centered on speed, flexibility, and high-tech tools. The shift to mobile warfare was essential to counter an enemy that thrives on asymmetric tactics, ambushes, and concealment in unforgiving terrain. It started with fast attack vehicles, tactical machines that combine speed with firepower. These aren't just transport units. They're mobile weapons platforms equipped with machine guns, grenade launchers, and anti-tank missiles. The idea is simple: strike fast, strike hard, and withdraw before the enemy can react. These vehicles allow the military to anticipate insurgent movements and respond quickly, making Burkinabe forces more agile, unpredictable, and difficult to engage. These fast attack units have transformed the military's responsiveness. In a region where insurgents strike from hidden camps deep in the bush, timing is everything. These vehicles reduce reliance on traditional logistics and static command centers. Instead of waiting for reinforcements or slowly moving troops across difficult terrain, the military can now launch rapid, high-impact missions with minimal delay. Their arrival isn't just a tactical innovation, it's a statement. Burkina Faso refuses to fall behind in the face of modern warfare. But it doesn't end there. True modernization also requires embracing intelligence and surveillance. Burkina Faso has invested in technology, especially drones. Once reserved for the most advanced militaries, drones now play a vital role in the country's counterinsurgency operations. They provide real-time intelligence and enable precision strikes, making them indispensable in the hunt for insurgent hideouts. The ability to gather intelligence without risking soldiers' lives offers a crucial tactical edge. Drones enable the military to identify targets and assess the success of strikes with unmatched accuracy. Their use isn't just a matter of updating military hardware, it's a complete shift in the approach to warfare. Instead of relying on outdated intelligence methods, Burkina Faso is embracing speed and precision. In addition to drones, advanced artillery systems have been integrated into this evolving military strategy. Artillery has always played a key role in ground combat, and in the Sahel, where the terrain often works in favor of insurgents, gaining control of the skies is vital. Burkina Faso's new artillery systems do more than hit ground targets. They also serve to dominate the airspace above insurgent zones, making it difficult for extremists to hide in fortified areas. With these systems, the military can disrupt enemy planning, reduce surprise attacks from hidden locations, and force insurgents into more exposed and manageable areas. However, this shift isn't just about acquiring the latest military tech. It reflects a deep understanding of the conflict itself. Burkina Faso's leadership realizes that conventional warfare won't defeat an enemy that thrives on stealth, mobility, and unpredictability. The insurgents avoid direct confrontations and rely on guerrilla tactics, which means the military must outthink and outmaneuver them. The strategy is not just to win battles, but to keep insurgents constantly on the run. Burkina Faso aims to create a battlefield environment so unstable and unpredictable that extremist groups can't gain a foothold. In this context, mobile units, drones, and artillery represent more than weapons. They're the instruments of a new kind of warfare, one that forces the enemy to fight on Burkina Faso's terms. These innovations allow the military to dictate the tempo of combat. As troops grow more skilled in using these tools, insurgents lose the ability to regroup and establish safe zones. For President Ibrahim Traoré, the objective is clear: equip his forces to keep the enemy off balance and on the defensive. The vision is to create a fast-moving, unpredictable battlefield that insurgents cannot control. This transition toward a modern, agile military force sends a strong message. Burkina Faso is no longer waiting for outside help. It's taking charge of its security and positioning itself as a leader in the fight against extremism in the Sahel. Yet, no military strategy is complete without focusing on the people who bring it to life. While new weapons and tools are critical, it's the soldiers who wield them that make the difference. Traoré's vision includes not just modernization of equipment, but of training and skill development as well. In a region where militants hide in forests, deserts, and remote villages, specialized training is key. One of the most innovative aspects of Burkina Faso's transformation is the creation of units tailored specifically to the country's terrain and the challenges of irregular warfare. Among the most notable efforts is the training of nearly 2,000 forestry agents. These are not ordinary soldiers. They're specially trained to operate in the very environments where insurgents feel most secure. The dense forests in the east and north of the country have long served as insurgent sanctuaries. These areas provide natural cover for regrouping, planning, and launching ambushes. Rather than relying on brute force alone, Traoré's government has deployed these forestry agents to eliminate safe havens from within. What sets their training apart is its dual emphasis on combat readiness and intelligence gathering. These agents are not just fighters, they are trackers and observers. They move through forests undetected, collect information, intercept communications, and anticipate insurgent activity. This hybrid training approach allows them to thrive in terrain where larger units might falter. It's a blend of stealth and strength, enabling these agents to engage the enemy while remaining invisible. Their preparation is both physically and mentally intense. They learn to navigate treacherous landscapes, remain undetected in hostile environments, and identify signs of enemy presence that would escape untrained eyes. Soldiers are trained to think like the very insurgents they're pursuing, to anticipate their tactics, and use the terrain as a strategic asset. This level of preparation reflects a modern approach to counterinsurgency, one that recognizes the importance of intelligence, stealth, and adaptability in conflicts where the battlefield is defined not by lines on a map, but by control of geography. This specialized training isn't limited to forested regions. Burkina Faso's military programs are designed to prepare troops for a wide range of environments. Whether it's the scorching desert or thick jungle, Burkinabe forces are trained to operate effectively in any setting. This all-terrain readiness produces a fighting force that is not only combat-ready, but also resilient in the face of changing conditions and unexpected challenges. The impact of this training is already being felt in the field, as insurgents retreat into remote forests and isolated zones. These specially trained agents can find and dismantle their strongholds with impressive efficiency. They disrupt supply routes, sever communication lines, and target key leaders. More importantly, they prevent the enemy from regrouping, an essential component of any long-term counterinsurgency effort. By eliminating safe zones and reducing the mobility of extremist groups, Burkina Faso is hitting at the core of their survival tactics. This strategy has begun to yield results. Insurgents, once able to move freely, are now being pursued in places they once considered untouchable. There has been a noticeable decrease in successful attacks on both civilians and military targets. The insurgents, who once operated from a position of confidence, are now on the back foot, increasingly uncertain about their safety and mobility. Still, these gains haven't come without difficulties. The forests are vast, and the enemy remains elusive. For every group that's dismantled, another may emerge elsewhere. The Burkinabe military must maintain relentless pressure. While specialized training is a critical pillar of the country's military reform, it forms part of a broader strategy that centers on adaptability and continuous evolution. In today's conflicts, the battlefield is constantly shifting, and the enemy is always adapting. Burkina Faso recognizes this, which is why its military training goes beyond conventional instruction. Soldiers and agents receive ongoing updates, new techniques, and fresh intelligence to ensure they remain ahead of the insurgents at all times. This focus on continuous improvement reflects a broader vision under Ibrahim Traoré, one where military strength isn't just measured in weapons or gear, but in the skill, resilience, and adaptability of its people. By building a highly trained and specialized force capable of operating in the toughest environments against elusive foes, Burkina Faso is crafting a military that is not only powerful but smart. This marks a deep understanding of what modern warfare demands: precision, intelligence, and flexibility, rather than brute force alone. But with such an ambitious transformation, what obstacles lie ahead? Modernizing a military force is never a straightforward task, especially in a country where the political landscape is fragile and sovereignty is constantly challenged. Traoré's vision for a stronger, more self-reliant Burkina Faso is bold, but it is not without serious hurdles. These challenges are not limited to the battlefield. They're deeply rooted in politics and geopolitics, affecting everything from national unity to international relations. While Traoré pushes forward with military reforms, his leadership has been consistently tested by a mix of internal divisions and external pressures. Domestically, the political environment remains precarious. Traoré came to power through a coup, a clear sign of the country's instability. The political system is marked by divisions that span from the military ranks to civilian leadership. These tensions not only threaten his grip on power, but also risk undermining the very reforms he's working to implement. Though Burkina Faso has made strides under his leadership, the constant friction among political and military factions casts a shadow over progress. Repeated coup attempts and unrest within the armed forces highlight just how fragile stability remains. Discontent within the military, often driven by competing interests or dissatisfaction with the government's approach to the insurgency, has occasionally erupted into direct challenges to his rule. While these threats have been repelled, they point to a deeper issue: a country still struggling to define its political identity amid years of conflict and uncertainty. For Traoré, success will demand more than just battlefield victories. He must also navigate a complex political landscape, keeping key factions aligned and avoiding further fragmentation. The military, while serving as the main instrument of political power in Burkina Faso, is far from unified. Within its ranks, different factions hold varying perspectives on governance, and these divisions often surface, directly challenging Traoré's leadership. The success of the country's military modernization depends heavily on the government's ability to bridge these internal divides. Control over the military, and by extension, the nation's future, remains a contentious issue. As Traoré advances his reform agenda, he must undertake the difficult task of bringing these groups together under a shared vision, without alienating any key players. Externally, Burkina Faso's pursuit of sovereignty has come with mounting pressures, particularly from former colonial powers and long-standing international partners. One of the most prominent challenges has emerged from its increasingly strained relationship with France, which has historically maintained a strong military presence in the Sahel. Since Traoré's ascent to power, Burkina Faso has adopted a more assertive stance, rejecting foreign interference and signaling a departure from France's sphere of influence. This shift was symbolically underscored by the suspension of Air France flights to Burkina Faso, widely interpreted as an attempt by France to exert leverage. The government responded firmly, making it clear that it would no longer accept external involvement in its internal affairs. For Traoré and many Burkinabe citizens, this stance was more than just political. It was a reclaiming of national dignity, a declaration that the era of post-colonial dependency was over. However, this rejection of France and broader Western influence has not come without consequences. Diplomatic ties have deteriorated, and Burkina Faso now faces the challenge of replacing the international military support it once relied upon. France had been a major player in regional counterinsurgency operations, and the loss of its assistance has left a notable gap, particularly at a time when insurgent threats continue to rise. In response, Burkina Faso has been forced to lean more heavily on its own resources while seeking out new international partnerships. The country's geopolitical posture has shifted significantly, with Traoré's administration distancing itself from Western powers and cultivating ties with alternative allies like Russia and China. Western nations, long involved in Sahel security operations, have historically offered military aid and logistical support in return for political alignment. Traoré's rejection of these arrangements, and his public criticism of what he sees as Western neocolonialism, has created diplomatic tensions. In contrast, China has stepped in as a strategic partner, offering economic deals and military cooperation as part of its wider efforts to expand influence across Africa. This new alliance has provided Traoré with a degree of autonomy, enabling him to resist Western pressure while securing alternative sources of support. Yet, this realignment is not without risk. Deeper ties with China, and potentially with Russia, may further alienate Western nations, potentially pushing Burkina Faso into a more isolated diplomatic position. For Traoré, the challenge lies in balancing these competing pressures, building a modern and effective military force, asserting national independence, and maneuvering through an increasingly polarized international system. Burkina Faso now finds itself at the heart of a broader geopolitical shift, one that could redefine its future. Whether this defiant path will strengthen the nation's sovereignty or leave it vulnerable on the world stage remains uncertain. What is clear, however, is that Burkina Faso is determined to forge its own way forward. Traoré's leadership will be tested not only by his ability to repel insurgencies, but also by his capacity to navigate the complex political realities at home and abroad. Burkina Faso's future lies in the balance. Can it modernize its military and maintain internal cohesion? Can it chart a new path in a polarized world without losing critical support? These are the questions that will define the country's journey. What is clear is that Traoré's administration is committed to forging a new identity for Burkina Faso, one built on strength, independence, and strategic resilience. The outcome will depend not only on the tools of war, but on the leadership, unity, and vision behind them. Tell us what you think in the comments section below. We explore the rich history, culture, and the ongoing struggle for sovereignty in Africa. Join us in this important conversation by subscribing to our channel. By subscribing, you're not just staying informed, you're becoming part of a movement dedicated to reclaiming Africa's rightful place on the global stage. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Let's work together to spread knowledge and inspire change. Thanks for watching.